So welcome to Cyndicate Talks. And of course, we're here to talk with Ben Arledge and about 3 tech tools. And by tech tools, we're talking about applications, how they affect operations, and ultimately about your business going online. So apps, ops, and online businesses, and how technology, much like we're doing right now, has an impact in the ability to leverage, grow, sustain, help, support a business. In fact, for the bulk of everybody on this call right now is a member of Cyndicate Tribe. So hello to the tribe sitting in the room. And for those that are going to watch this webinar in the coming days and weeks and months, this application, and this may even be a topic of conversation for us today, has helped to allow our organization to continue to meet, talk to each other, foster business development and growth. So knowing what to do with technology, how to make it work, and more importantly, where to invest your time and your hard-earned dollars is going to make sure to maximize technology's use for you. So 3 tech, you're going, okay, you're just going to give me 3 things. Actually, we're going to talk about apps or applications. We're going to talk about how it supports operations for business. And then of course, online, what it means when your business goes online. A lot of people just think that maybe it's this thing, there's my phone, a set of headphones, it's on a tripod. That's going online. I opened up the internet window and I did the thing and it made the places and I went to my bank and etc. And occasionally I talk to my marketing guy and he says the pretty pictures are doing well. There's a little more to it than that. So we hope to illuminate, shine a flashlight in some dark corners, and leave you better educated at the end of it. Ben Arledge is with me. Now, Ben and I have had a relationship stretching back just about 2 years. And Ben is one of the foremost thought leaders inside of technology in Western Canada. In fact, he's worked for some major players. He's worked on some fundamentally scalable, large-sized applications, software processes, and of course, his technical expertise and mastery is hard to come by. His role primarily is done as Chief Technical Officer and, of course, chief of his own little empire through companies like Avenue.io, ClickStory, Cabana.io, which is the latest and greatest for social media marketing management for solopreneurs on the marketplace. Cloud Owl is his real estate company, Ironbrook, 50/50 raffle app, etc. These are the things that Ben is building, working with, creating, sustaining, and of course, he's building the technical back end for Cyndicate. So Cyndicate can be really an efficient and a world-class business with very little input, very little effort. Small local environment and economy, world-class impact. So Ben, welcome. Why don't you take about 30 seconds or a minute, fill us in a little more on your background, and then why don't we dive right into apps, ops, and online and how technology is going to help businesses.
Sure. Thank you, Mitch. Ben Arledge here. I've been in IT for about, over 20 years now, so a long time. Through the dot-com bubble in 2000 before that. So I've seen a lot of things in the public and private sectors that I've been fortunate to be able to not only work through on small and large scale on a technical side, but also on a business process and advisement as well. So that's where I specialize right now. I help companies figure out where they're at and work with them to where they want to be. That can be through apps, that can be through efficiencies in their business as well. Yeah.
Perfect. Ben, thanks for sharing a little bit about yourself. Let's get right into the meat and potatoes to start with. We've got apps, applications, software. For those of us that are getting a little older, we remember software, right? It's still, I got a floppy disk, I got to put it into the giant drive folder, and it's going to make a whole bunch of noise, and it's going to take a little while, and eventually I'm going to start typing in DOS to where we've moved forward to now. So we've got applications, we've got operations, and we've got online. And more importantly, it's questions about applications, things like kind of apps that business owners should be using, kind of apps that make differences to small businesses, what apps are most essential for businesses, etc. The kinds of the things that people ask, want to know information on. And I mean, through course of conversations over essentially 2 years, this is a number of the things that we've had a chance to talk about. So let's go to what kinds of apps should an average business use? Email, accounting, sales, etc. What would be some of your recommendations and suggestions? and some thought or feedback on that.
Yeah. So there's so many options on the market right now, and choices, which is great for small businesses. But the problem is figuring out which one is the right one for you. And that can take time, which a lot of us don't have. So for things like email, for me, that's a really easy one to recommend. I usually go with the Google or Microsoft 365 account. They know the email game really, really well. They've been in that industry a long time, and email is kind of like a cartel. You don't want to cheap out on that. You want to do it the right way, because the big players have a good grip on keeping spammers out, keeping fraud out of their systems. So you definitely want to go with the big players there. For accounting, lots of options. QuickBooks, Wave has a free option as well. For those just starting out, that can be hugely valuable there to get an idea of where you're at with forecasting. Sales, you're looking at having a PayPal account or Stripe account, or even Braintree if you've got an integrated system. Braintree is bought by PayPal, actually. So that's under the same roof now.
So if I could, can I jump in for a sec?
Yeah.
Interesting you say that, because we actually had our accounting partner in to talk about financial structure for businesses, and when asked directly about software, once more we see QuickBooks and Wave come up, and of course we're talking about sales. You really mean payment processing. In other words, how do I get paid faster? People are going to wave their wallet around. They're going to want to whip out their credit card, whatever it is. Some people still write checks. So that's just, that would be speeding up the amount of time it takes to get paid.
Right. Yeah. Typically, you're going to add PayPal or your Stripe, connect them with whatever accounting software you're using, or with your website. Say you've got WordPress or something like that. So you would need some sort of way to accept payment there.
Okay. Interesting.
And speaking of websites, there's so many options there as well. You could go with WordPress. Again, so many different plugins. The only thing I would caution small businesses there is it can be a bit of a time sink. There's a lot of updates on a daily or weekly basis to WordPress. Their WordPress sites are the most hackable, so you could end up having some downtime, which could negatively affect your business as well. So some things to consider there. Ways I've gotten around that is through static websites. So this is a non-content management system. It's basically a static brochure website. Maybe it's got a contact page or a button that goes to PayPal to purchase, but for the most part, it's just static and it's not hackable. It will take a little bit more time to update because it is not a content management system. But if you don't make a whole lot of updates to your website, if it's mostly the same content and you have minimal updates, I would highly recommend considering that. But then you can go into very complex systems, which are cloud-based as well. So you can have, tens or dozens of servers which manage your business in different capacities. So marketing side, you're looking at having a social media management tool. You could check out Cabana. There's other ones like Hootsuite as well, which will help you kind of schedule your content. You can plan that out in advance for the next week, month, whatever you've got the capacity for. And then you can also use some tools like Canva for creating those content on different platforms. And you can use Unsplash as well. That's one I use quite a bit for finding good images. Because when you're on social media or marketing, you're looking for those visual elements, and that's what you can get through that. Advertising, you're looking at Facebook Business as well as LinkedIn as your primary on a business side. Those are your largest audiences there.
So if I can for a moment, I'm gonna screen share something real quick. because
Sure.
you've mentioned some of the software we've got here. And I want to just show off a little bit here because it's one of the tools that I use semi-regularly. My content goes out in a number of different places, but I think it's important to just share it for a moment and say, hey, this is kind of the stuff that we do. This is the inside of Cabana. We're looking right at our dashboard for Cabana, and this is the published side as well. And I mean, you mentioned the software. That's the stuff I'm using. You know, everything you talked about. So I'm gonna put you on the spot for a moment because it gave us a little list. So call it our shopping list, if you will. But I'm gonna ask the expert. I'm gonna ask the tech person. I like Cabana. I was introduced to Cabana thanks to you. Everything else you've mentioned so far is stuff that I've used in the past. You know, when it comes to my marketing side, I use Cabana because that helps to schedule. I use Canva because that helps me to create stuff. You know, create pretty pictures, marketing content, etc.
Yeah.
So these are the, call it the Kool-Aid that I'm drinking myself. What does Ben use? So we're here and we got our master list, if you will. What do you use for email?
Yeah, I use Cabana. I've developed that in-house here, so I recommend that for our internal operations as well as those of you in Cyndicate and those operating small businesses. I set it at a pretty low price point, mostly because I'm not looking to get the large organizations necessarily using that. I'm looking for small businesses and help them out.
Okay. Yeah. Ben, what do you use for email? What do you use for your accounting?
Yeah.
What do you use for payment processing? What's the stuff that Ben uses?
Sure. I love Google. I'm a little bit biased that way, so I use the Google G Suite for email. My accounting, I've used FreshBooks for a while now. I'm not married to it. I've considered jumping over to QuickBooks, but for now, I've stayed there. For sales, I use PayPal and Stripe, depending on the business and the product that I'm offering. We've got a few different businesses, so I do use both. For websites, I use static sites as well as a combination of client and server-based technologies for that. So being a tech guy, I've got a few tools under my belt there. So
fair enough. We got marketing. We talked a little bit about that, and of course, I'm going to help to fill in the blanks too, because it is overwhelming to take this thing and get it to talk for your business. Something like marketing can already seem scary as it is. Having something that helps to speed that up, having something that helps to create the content. Talking about payment, some people are going, I'll take check, I'll take cash, I'm going to set a payment. I don't know whether to go through one of the payment processing systems out there, et cetera. These things can be exhausting. So having just a list here, use this for this reason, use this for that is something that really starts to narrow it down. I mean, with marketing goes advertising. So how do you as a small business owner advertise, and what do you advocate?
You know what? I've been actually pretty terrible at advertising. That's why I have you, Mitch. So Facebook ads. I've done some LinkedIn as well, Google AdWords as well. That's the gist of what I've done. But really, I think we could all probably get more value out of doing our own advertisements through our own social channels. So if you're on, say, Cabana, and you're creating content through Canva, I think that's probably a really great bang for your buck as a small business. It's just pushing it out through your channels, sharing it.
Fantastic. Okay, so with that, differences. We've talked about advertising, marketing, et cetera. That consumer-facing side, like what is going to make a big difference to businesses when it comes to pointing it out at the marketplace? And then what should people really look at actually investing money in? In other words, great, you mentioned some stuff. I'm sure some of it costs, some of it doesn't. I know that I can sign up through Google Gmail for a free email, but you mentioned G Suite. So where do we spend our money? What do we do to point ourselves out to the marketplace a little more, and where do we save?
Sure. For email, I mean, it's pretty low cost. I would highly recommend, doing G Suite or Office 365. They're pretty low cost, like $5 to $10 a month per email. So to me, that's a no-brainer because I know what is involved in managing an email server, and yeah, it's a nightmare. So for all the things that these companies do, well worth the cost. Marketing, if you're using a social media management tool, it's going to be tough to find a cheap one that's good. You're going to have to spend probably a little bit of cash there for that that functionality, but that's going to pay off in spades in your time.
Okay.
So well worth it there. You're also going to want to look at analytics tools. So you could look at Google Analytics, which is a free tool, but it's a bit more technically challenging. So unless you're in the analytics space every day, it might be a little bit overwhelming. And you might not have the dashboards, which can be customized to give you the right metrics. So we've got ClickStory, which is a product that I've also built, which kind of gives you some basic stats as well as, and this is what it offers a couple things that Google Analytics doesn't, and that's live sessions and heat maps for your website. So gives you a little bit of insight into what your audience is doing on your website with just a straight up video. You can watch what they're doing, what they're clicking on, what they're looking at, which is highly useful when figuring out what your customer is interested in and where they're getting stuck.
I'm going to flip over to screen share for a moment to do just that. Here's ClickStory. It's actually looking at my website right now, and this data is just for a handful of days. You can see where people have come in and where they're actively looking, how they're getting to me, what countries they're coming from, screen resolution. So that could tell you what kind of image quality you would want on there. I mean, Ben, you're mentioning something extraordinary about that, where they're coming to us from, what kind of browsers, desktop, mobile, what kind of operating system people are coming in and cycling to look at my business. So analytics, let me just say this. Why is analytics so important then? You've mentioned it. Yeah. Should I care? Do I really care about the math as long as people show up? Or why is analytics important? And I know that we've got some questions already. So let's answer the analytics question, and then let's go to questions right now. Okay. Analytics. What's so important about analytics?
It's going to tell you what your customers are doing, what they're interested in, what pages on your site are performing. If they're not performing, you need to do some work on that. If you find something that you didn't think would do or catch interest, you might be pleasantly surprised that you've got a piece of content there that you need to make more prominent and milk that. So yeah.
Ashley, I know you've got a couple of questions right now. Great time to jump in.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Mitch. So Ben, you had talked about Wave apps, with regards to invoicing and things like that, but you also talked about PayPal with regards to payments. Would you recommend Wave apps payments in as a one function tool compared to getting a PayPal and getting, Wave apps to do invoicing and things? Or is there a benefit to having PayPal in addition?
You can use their payment systems. That should be fine. They're going to be pretty comparable to what PayPal or Stripe offer as far as transaction fees go, which are typically going to run about 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. So most of the payment processors are about in that range, if not exactly that. There's not a whole lot of variation there. Okay. So yeah, you can use Wave's payment system.
Okay, perfect. It's what I'm using now, so I wanted to make sure whether I should switch or not. And then with regards to your ClickStory, I know you and I had talked earlier and that you were in the process of finalizing it and launching it. And I see that Mitch has got it, and I'm not sure if he has a trial version or not. Is it available for public purchase now?
Sorry, which one?
Your Click Story?
Yeah. So that one, we're actually going to be adjusting some pricing on it.
Okay.
On a lower end. So there's going to be a cheaper option there available soon.
Okay.
Definitely get a chance to update it.
That's okay.
And we're looking at making a package available for Cyndicate members only as well. In the future. So yeah, I'll share some links here shortly for you and the group. And yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashley. Anybody else? Questions for the moment?
One note on Ashley's question about Wave. If you do, say, use PayPal or Stripe's payment system and add that into Wave, you've got more ownership of the data that way. So if you did, say, switch accounting systems, it would still be going through your own Stripe or PayPal account. Right? So you would still have all your data in that one spot rather than having to have two separate systems, one for the old system and then switch over to a new system.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
If I can, with Ben's thought real quick. I started in this industry 7 years ago as a solo coach, got a business partner, spun a business up, ended up with 8 employees, 10 of us total in the company, came back out. And except for that period of time where my partner and I had a far more developed business where we went down the path of a more formalized system, I've used PayPal nearly since the beginning of my business industry. It allows people to pay with almost every payment method. The fees are comparable. Most people say, well, isn't it a little more expensive? This will go more to the accountant talk we had a little while ago, but I get to write that off as banking fees anyway. So I'm okay paying an extra quarter point or half a point every time I run a transaction, because it's just going to come back in the form of a write down for my taxation later on because I'm paying banking fees because of it. So you'd want to be conscientious over costs. You always want to do, but PayPal has certainly served my business very well through several hundred businesses and thousands of transactions. So without failure and issue. So there's some great alternatives there, low cost, no cost to working all the way up.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thanks. Ben, I just had one more question. You mentioned your Cabana program, and I briefly just took a peek at the website. I have a couple different brands, as some of us do, that we would be posting under, so different accounts. Yeah. And I noticed that your middle offering does that. Is that usually hidden in others? Like, for instance, Hootsuite, if we look at their offerings and they say, 10 social media accounts, is there fine print that says but one per platform that we should be aware of?
Yeah, most platforms will restrict you in that. Of course, they want you to upgrade to a higher plan, right?
Yeah.
But no, for Cabana, we're pretty generous on the amount of accounts you can add in those plans. So, if you're looking for a lot of Facebook accounts, say more than maybe you've got no Pinterest accounts or things like that, you can absolutely load up on Facebook instead.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we can talk offline.
Sure. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, Ben, let's drag you back in here to a moment. Apps, this is the stuff that everybody else has got. I can go to Google, I can go to Microsoft, I get your software, Cabana, to help social media management, something like Hootsuite. Analytics, I can get ClickStory to manage my website. I can go to Google Analytics to get data from there. I can go into, of course, you put ClickStory, Hotjar. All the social media platforms have their own analytics too, right? Facebook has got it for your company pages. LinkedIn has analytics based on, how well your posts are doing individually, never mind whether you've got a company on there, et cetera. But there is stuff that you can pay for, stuff that you can get for free, and stuff that now some businesses, based on what they do, should really look at investing or even having made for themselves. Now that's where you start to cross over from app to op. In other words, what's going to satisfy my business? I know a couple of companies that are having custom project management software built, et cetera. So where should businesses start to make that consideration where should they look at investing in something more robust or even having their own stuff made?
Yeah, and this is where, my company CloudL really comes in helping businesses understand where their challenges are at in their business from a technology standpoint. So that could be from business workflow. Maybe they're paying an arm and a leg through licensing of software, which, if they put a little bit of investment into building their own internal product, that can save them long term and as well be more suitable for what their business actually needs. And then you're looking at possibly doing brand building. You're building that customized digital experience where your customers are now coming through your customized product, and they're experiencing your brand, your business flow. What else? I think a lot of businesses also need to invest in apps where maybe they have weaknesses in their business. So if you're short on the accounting side, yeah, you might go with an app that's going to help you export that information to your accounting system or integrate it with it, right? You might have some internal processes that will smooth that transition to an app that specializes in an area where your business doesn't.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So for apps, again, where you should invest, where you shouldn't invest, but think essential. Most important, most essential. What are some of the considerations we have to make when we're looking at apps? Maybe not the kind of app, but what we should be looking for, because we all know the device, right? The phone, the sacred animal that we all carry around in our pockets, or in our purses, or in our shirts, or in our jackets, or wherever else we're going to do. There's an awful lot of stuff on them that's probably not so helpful, but certainly fun. Mm-hmm. So what should we do when we're making consideration about essential, and what would be some of those characteristics that we should use as our litmus test to tell us whether or not we should use it?
Yeah. And you're looking for apps that are going to not create more hassle for you or your employees. They're going to not take up time. They're going to save you time, so that you can spend more time on your business rather than in it. Right? You want to help. You want to spend, or you want to have apps that are going to help you grow your business, not take up your time. Yeah, that's really the big one. I think when I talk to other people, I think that's the primary one that everything really revolves around is time. Time is money. So you want to make sure that you're using the right apps that will make your business efficient.
Okay. So when we'll take that, and let's take the next extension down there. If we're going to look at efficiency, we have to look at what happens when a business is operating. We call it apps, ops, and online. So operations now. What consideration should you make in the form of apps when it comes to automating? How would you make a consideration on making it work better for your business? What typical needs would you consider for streamlining your business, or let's say manufacturing, whether you build something or not, to make the way you do stuff work better?
Mm-hmm. A lot of what goes into an app is business logic, and that has to deal with operating within your business parameters, whether that's restricting or throttling processes so that no single area gets overwhelmed or gets backed up. And that's from sales to shipping. You can have a sales department that's kicking ass, but if you don't have the bandwidth to deal with that, then you've got some things to figure out with your business logic there.
Okay.
And you're looking at onboarding too. Onboarding, your user experience, your user interface. I mean, let's be honest here, there's a lot of software out there that's clunky, not very fun to use. So, you know, making that app that's not going to be like stabbing you in the eyeballs is going to be a good thing. You don't want it to be annoying either. So things like notifications. A lot of apps will constantly bombard you. So you want to find the right balance for that. Again, you're going to use analytics to determine what the right balance is. And then sharing information. You want to be able to have the information in your app or business to be able to share it with the right people. So what does that transparency look like on different levels of management versus employees versus customers? You want to make sure that you've got a degree of transparency there that's helping your business processes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about processes and time, and I mean, when we talked about efficiency, you wanted to save time. You've talked about it, how it's going to operate, how it's going to save us, how it's going to do all these other things. So what you're saying is that every piece of software I get, everything that I'm going to plug into this thing is going to save time. Well, no, that's not, because you've already said that. It's a number of things that can really, really create time sinks. So what do we have to consider when bringing software in? Because if it doesn't save time, make it better, make it more efficient, or make your employees better, probably not the best, but there's an awful lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean, having a dashboard or key performance indicators will help, will go a long way towards just having an eye on your business and some of the processes within it. You need to be able to determine, your cash flow, your feedback from your customers, how your processes are performing, both in your business and externally as well. Yeah.
So you'd say that software is one thing, or apps are one thing to make life easier, better, faster, but it's another thing for the way. And you've mentioned so I'm gonna call you on a little bit of tech talk for a moment.
Yeah.
Use a little bit of plain language and get you to explain it to us again. And not because you're not doing a fantastic job. I love what you're saying, but this is something where a lot of people will start to go, kind of know what he's saying, but I kind of don't, and I get the gist of it. What we're really saying is, if I can use it simply or even intuitively, if it works well, in other words, I can figure it out, or it looks appealing. Sounds strange to say. It's like, well, if it works, doesn't it matter? Well, no, because if it appears functional and it is, as you said, not stabbing you in the eyeballs. In other words, it's good to look at, good to use, easy to figure out, simple to get started with, or doesn't waste time, then the likelihood of you finding its usefulness or it being applicable to you starts to increase. So usability, user interface, and I mean, this is exactly the reason why I brought you on board, because when I get to listen to Ben talk about software, and I guess what I'm railroading him towards in the midst of this conversation, some of the things that he does brilliantly are things like the actual visual side, the user interface, thinking about the end user experience. And there's a lot of brilliant ways to say that, but that's really what it boils down to, is I want to know that it is cost effective, that it's going to do what I expect it to do, and that when I plug in, download it, install it, get the dude on the Zoom call to help me figure it out, that actually it's going to do exactly what it's supposed to, but I'm going to be able to figure it out fairly quickly. Yes, I'm going to need some input or a little bit of time and training, but it shouldn't be exhaustive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the reason why, Apple's so successful, is, they build stuff that, pretty much just works. It's easy, right? Now they do charge an arm and a leg for their stuff, and they can get away with it because it is so good looking and easy. So, I mean, I think businesses can look at some of the similar concepts there in their own business. When you provide a high value, easy to use, non-painful way to interact with your business, you can increase that cost to your client, and they'll gladly pay for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So businesses are going to consider going online, and if we're going to make it easy to find, easy to use, easy to figure out, cost effective, etc. Well, I'm talking to you on a laptop right now. Most of us, well, all of us on this call are connected on the internet, but not necessarily everything lives out there and not everything lives here.
Mm-hmm.
So when businesses consider going online, what should be that consideration when it comes to making that digital move, right? Would that consideration be whether or not it has to do with their marketing, document management, etc.? What should businesses consider when moving online, quote unquote, moving to the cloud, moving to the Ethernet? And how is application going to really help that?
That's a very open-ended question. I don't know if I have a very clear answer because business is so different. You can scale as much or as little as you want to, as you're comfortable with as a business owner. And that's exactly where I kind of sit down with those owners and figure out what their capacity is for implementation.
Okay. So let's, if I can, let's use data then. Where should we consider? Because information is important.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to you on a laptop, and my laptop has served me well for the better part of 4 years. Yeah. It's only had a couple of oopses. In my case, all of my stuff is stored, online, thanks to Google.
Yeah.
But the two instances where I've had a technology issue, that's left me with a little bit of whoops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, storage, cloud storage now is so cheap. I recommend everyone use, whether it's a specific cloud or storage service like Dropbox even will do for a lot of businesses. Or you could go even more fancy and go to Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud or Azure. Lots of different options for cloud storage. And they've come a long way in the last 10 years, both in their redundancy and location, being able to upload and download that data very quickly from anywhere in the world. So, totally. I mean, unless you've got a internet connection issue locally, where access to your data is fundamental at all times, I would recommend cloud storage. If you need that data with you, regardless of if there's an outage or not, there are network storage devices you can use on premises that will store plenty of data there, and those also synchronize with the cloud services. So you're covered twofold there, but there's a bit of investment if you want to have that locally as well. Yeah.
So let me ask the lead-in question, which is obvious, but needs to be asked, even though everybody's an expert until they get pinched by an email scam. Is it secure?
Email?
No, your data. So you told me to put all my data online. Now it's out there. Now the pirates can come and steal it. Or is that not quite the case?
Sure. That's something I would spend a little bit of time on. Whatever vendor you're picking for your storage is going to have your own security mechanism. Do your research. There's plenty of review sites out there. There's J2, there's Capterra. You can look at what other customers have experienced on those storage platforms. And they'll give you a good idea of what to expect as well. But generally speaking, a storage service will not survive if it's not secure. Typically, if it's a well-known brand, you're pretty safe.
Okay. So which one do you use?
I use Amazon Web Services mostly because I'm very technical that way, and they have a lot of different offerings that they offer for, say, vendors like myself. Yeah.
So hard data documentation. A lot of businesses are going digital, but some people still have hard data, hard information, et cetera. A given time where, we're scanning it in, creating it digital, and that. Do we keep that still separate and contained someplace else? Do we just keep it digital? Do we keep a little bit of both? What would be your ultimate recommendation?
You're breaking up there a little bit. You're asking what storage I would recommend?
Yeah, when we're looking at storage for the actual data itself, do we stick it all out there in the cloud? Do we keep the most important stuff here? Do we do both? What does Ben do?
On a personal level, I use Google Photos for all our photos that way and videos. But you know what, for your business data, you can use Dropbox. I've used that for some things. Google storage as well, which comes with your G Suite conveniently. So storing stuff on your Google Drive is perfectly fine, especially if you're sharing that within your organization.
Okay. So for me then, right now the setup I've got in front of me, I got my laptop, I got all my monitors, all of my client business-based data is actually backed up in Google. I'm using G Suite as well. All my data goes out there. And then I actually have a tethered physical drive to my laptop too, backing up. And in my case, I'm using MacBook, Apple. So Time Machine every day is going through and taking that entire snapshot of my laptop and moving it away. Is that overkill? Is that the best practice?
Yeah, no, it's pretty common. For Apple and Time Machine, Apple storage isn't the cheapest, but it is very convenient. So if you're using that and you're happy with it, don't change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question. Well, that was essentially it, but should people look at protecting that information? And I guess you've just answered that question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And also because we write this stuff down too, simply to keep us on track. Should we keep it wholly digital or should we keep it a mix?
I'm a fan of going all digital. If you can store it, in a lot of cases, a lot of things we store, we don't actually need. But if we can get rid of the physical stuff in our lives and make things a bit more feng shui, in our business, reduce some of that clutter, some of that, those things that are business that, might cause us some anxiety, then I'm a fan of going digital.
Ben, actually, for those that joined us today, helpful, thoughtful questions. There can be a lot of information, and I've sent a couple of links to you guys in here now. Some of the info that Ben and I have talked about today. Some things like Capterra, for example, one of the best software comparison sites on the planet. You'd be surprised at the kind of things you can look at to see which feature beats out which better. But it pays to at least listen to somebody, pay to a voice to start with. So here's your time. Questions or comments, thoughts, ideas, clarification on something. Hey, my business does this, and I'm thinking about doing this or that. What should I be doing? What should my consideration be? I'm in HR, I'm in accounting, I'm in business development, sales, CRMs. What is a CRM? There's always a million questions, and we all seem to think that either we're far smarter, or else we seem really silly because asking that question sounds like it'd be dumb. But if we never have a chance to learn it from anywhere, then it's no help to us. So questions or comments? Good to go?
So Ben, you talked about onboarding. Are there specific apps that you recommend for onboarding processes?
That's really more for high-end custom apps, where there's a lot of different processes involved in getting users or clients into your system. So that can be, say, social media signups, log in with Facebook or Google, that kind of thing. And that just provides more security for the end user as far as what data they want to give up. So they're not entering in a password, they're logging in with an established authentication method there. But as far as onboarding goes, having systems where you might have a welcome email, something that's going to help them have a good expectation of what they can expect in your service or offering. Yeah, just more touch points, which will give them more benefit to using you. Yeah. Yeah. So you can use like something like even MailChimp. Have it send out a welcome email, when someone signs up for your newsletter, or even if they sign up as a user and on your website, with some information that will be helpful to them. Make them feel valued, right? That onboarding experience, you want to make sure that your customer is taken care of right from the get-go.
So Ben, I'm going to go through some major categories, call it common, or the most universal, or the most stock kind of idea stuff that we're going to need, and just one word, which product would be your preference. So when I say SMM, social media management software, you're probably going to say Cabana. At least I would hope so, since you built the software, but you might have a different opinion. So let's start there. SMM, what would you recommend?
Yeah, Cabana. Yeah.
Okay. Now, free for analytics. In other words, analytics is where we get the math so that we can see what's going on with people. What would be free for analytics?
Free for analytics?
Yeah.
We've got ClickStory, which has a free offering.
Okay.
That's going to be going away soon, perhaps. We'll see. Yeah, if you've got a chance to check it out, sign up for the free option where you can.
Okay. And obviously, if we're going to go, what should you pay for when it comes to analytics? In other words, measuring what's going on, let's say when it comes to your website and stuff like that, obviously we would say, again, ClickStory.
Yeah, ClickStory, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Accounting and bookkeeping software.
I listened to Danielle, and she seems to point everyone towards QuickBooks. I'm not an accountant expert, so I'm going to leave it up to the expert that I know, and she recommends QuickBooks.
Okay. Email document, and just your general streamlining as well. You mentioned both Google and Microsoft Office 365. I'm telling you, you got to pick just one. What would you use?
Definitely Google's G Suite. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits there. You've got a huge segment of your younger population also coming through the system that have used G Suite through their schools, whether it's the universities or public education, especially here in Alberta. That's what they're using. So that's what they're familiar with. That's what your young people that you're going to be hiring in your business are going to be experienced with. Yeah.
Okay. So let's see, we've got email, we've got accounting, we've got social media management, actual marketing, getting stuff done and created. What would you recommend?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Canva is super easy to use. But yeah, you know what? This might be a better question for you, Mitch, actually. What would you use?
Actually, you hit it right on the head. I love Canva, and I've been an advocate of them for a very long time. Once again, it's got a free option and a paid for option. The free option gives you tens of thousands of opportunities to make something really cool. You can make presentations. Again, under software here, we've got things like marketing, social media, et cetera. So for social media, you've got LinkedIn and Facebook, kind of the places you go for business. Well, Canva allows you to build pretty much everything for any of those. You want to create just a Facebook post, Canva's got a format and a template that's exactly the right size. You know, you go on LinkedIn and you see the profile pictures and you see the big banner pictures at the top. Canva's got a format and the exact scale to build those headers on LinkedIn profiles, for, you know, image sizes for all these things. You can build presentations, slide decks. You can do short videos. You can build GIFs or GIFs, depending on how one pronounces that. You can build all the different content you need. You can build books and notices and seminar. Exactly. So yeah, I would recommend there, because you can start for free. So that's always a great resource to go with. If you're going to, we're going to leverage down one more, advertising. Let's go with advertising, social media. Where are you going to go, and where are you going to start with your business, or where should businesses start with their business if they're going to stretch into the wide world of social media?
Yeah. I would suggest, you know, check out some of Rapid Boost Marketing's sessions on advertising as well. They've got some really good content there. LinkedIn, particularly, you know, if you're aiming for B2B. If you're looking for business to consumer, you know, Facebook is probably a fantastic option there as well. Yeah.
Last one, which is always near and dear to my heart, calendar. How do people keep themselves organized? What would you recommend so people are keeping better track of what they're doing?
Being in G3, they use Google Calendar, obviously. But you know, Apple's got their calendar. Microsoft's got their calendar system. You know, use the calendar system which you've integrated with your business platform. What you're aligned with. If you're running on Microsoft products, use Microsoft. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, hey, thanks for tuning in. Technology, both daunting, insightful, frightening, comforting, fun, serious. Technology applications, there are millions of options available. And again, one of the resources we mentioned today, Capterra, all you have to do is spend 10 minutes. I'm looking for software that allows me to do estimating and electrical contracting only for industrial production. Why? That's literally a thing that I've typed into that search string in the last 90 days. And funny enough, you'll find dozens of opportunities for somebody who has made exactly that, and how well they compare to each other from price and usability, etc. So take a time and opportunity, decide what it is that you need for your business. More importantly, look for those areas where you always have challenges, where you get squeezed, you get constrained. Find the resources, the tools, the apps that are going to help, first of all, take your business online, that are going to speed up or make more efficient your business, your operations, that are going to make you, if you're your only employee or your employees, better at their jobs. And more importantly, are going to be really, really simple to use, really easy. Can you use them? Can you put them to work very quickly? And are they going to do what they say they're going to do? And can you understand them? If that is kind of your criteria going in, chances are you're going to be successful. A guy like Ben gets paid to build beautiful, elegant, complex things, but he also gets paid to do it so that you end up wanting to use it at the end. So Ben, thank you for sharing your information and expertise on here. For our audience that joined us today, thank you for coming in with us as well. For those that get to see it over the coming days and weeks, do not hesitate to reach out to Ben through his companies, Avenue.io, clickstory.app, Ironbrook, Cloud Owl, etc., etc. He has a wealth of knowledge to share with you, and he's happy to have a conversation with anybody. We look forward to seeing you in the future, and have a fantastic day. Everybody go safely in the world, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.